We're ready now.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I will call the meeting of the Rutland Regional Planning Commission Executive Finance Committee meeting to order today on November 10th, 5:31. That's what I've got on my screen. And recording has been started. I take it.
Yes.
And welcome, everybody. I'm glad not to go out and drive around. It's starting to like icy snow here. And I don't have my snow tires on yet. Excuses, excuses, excuses.
I need to do the same.
So first thing is the approval of our agenda for November 10th. Is there any need for any changes or adjustments, or can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Could we add an executive session
We can?
at the end of the meeting?
Sounds good.
I'll make a
So-
motion to approve. Make a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of the executive session.
Thank you, Larry. So second, thank you, Bob. All in favor, please say aye.
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 The second was
All right.
Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah, second was Bob. Next item is approval of the October 14th meeting minutes. Any changes needed? Or can I have a motion to approve the minutes of October 14th? Thank you, Bob or Larry.
Second.
And second, Larry, Bob. All in
Great,
favor
I'm
to
glad
approve.
you've given up. There's no point. You're never gonna beat them to it.
I know. I have to put this in screen, Andrew, so I can see you. All right. All in favor to approve the minutes of October 14th, please say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Thanks. All right, moving on. I see no members of the public, unless it's the invisible man or woman. And moving on to September financial report. MK, nice to see you here. I haven't talked to you in ages.
Yeah, right? Okay, so I can provide that report. Let me share my screen here. Which one it is? Right there. Okay. Okay, so September financials. So the September P&L reflects net income of about 180,000, and that is high, and that is due to recording the second quarter ACCD invoice at the end of September. The ACCD invoice is roughly, or it's a little more than 170,000, so you can see why that September net income so high. So looking at the revenue, line 403.5, Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation is expected to take a large jump. We should be receiving an invoice, I would say this week, for more than 200,000. So that will go ahead and increase that revenue line. And as stated earlier, line 403, state income is high.
While you're talking.
Oh, yeah. Okay, line 403, state income is high. Did I just say this? As ACCD invoice has been invoiced for the second quarter, as stated above. So line 417, U.S. Department of Labor. This will increase as work ramps up with our subgrantees. And line 420, special projects, it is low, but this line will increase once projects like the bond bank and DIBG have more activity. So looking at the expense side on line 541, service contracts is high. And this is due to our outsourced IT setup, RRPC's new leased laptops. So I will talk about that further down in my report. Or I could address it now, but we entered into a lease agreement with Dell to get all new computers for staff. The computers were just not making it to the 5-year life expectancy. So by leasing the computer equipment, we'll be able to manage and budget the equipment line much easier. So what happened is the service contract line is higher because our outsourced IT went ahead and set up all of the laptops due to limited time. Like we needed to get this equipment in, we needed them set up. Next time, if we do another lease, then Dell will go ahead and set these laptops up for us, which will be included in as part of the lease. So line 545, subscriptions is high as the annual Adobe renewal was paid in August. That's a renewal of over $3,000. Line 550, rent and office improvements is high as 4 months of rent have already been captured in the system, and the renovation to split Devon's office from one office into 2 offices was completed and paid. Now this expense right now is on the P&L, but it will be capitalized and moved over to the balance sheet at the end of the fiscal year. And then line 565, equipment purchase is high because of what I just talked about with the lease agreement. So accounts receivable as of 9/30 totaled roughly $514,000. And as of 11/9/2025, accounts receivable totaled roughly $298,000. And that's my report.
On the lease agreement for the computers.
Yeah.
You mentioned next time Dell would set them up. Would that part of the contract or would it be an extra?
No, it's not an extra.
Okay.
They could have done it this time. But we were in a time crunch to get these in and turned around.
We had a
'Cause
couple staffers without.
Yeah, we had computers
Computers.
failing, so we had to expedite things.
And then what's the cycle of these being replaced as needed, or is there a date?
3 years.
3
Lease,
years,
3
unless-
years and they replace them.
If they have issues, then Dell will come in, repair them. If they can't repair them, they'll replace them
Okay.
during that 3 years.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting at the end of 3 years, if we can, or even at the end of 2 cycles, if we can compare before and after with purchasing, whether we're saving money. Obviously, it won't capture all the costs of like lost time if a computer goes down. But it's the only piece of equipment we need. That's,
Even if you break even, it's a win.
it's a win. Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion on the financial report? Hearing none. Thank you, MK. Let's move on to the audit report of fiscal year 25.
You want to drive that one too?
Sure.
I have like 2 things that I'm just pull it up here.
Here, I can get it. I'm putting right now.
Okay.
It's right there, right?
It's
Why is this so laggy? Weird. Are you gonna be speaking from your paper?
yeah.
It's laggy on here.
Okay, so we're ahead of schedule. So we didn't think we would have the draft audit back until December, to have it reviewed and approved at the December board meeting, but we are ahead of schedule and have the draft audit back now in hopes that we can review it tonight and have the full board vote on it next week. So that would be, we're in really good shape in that way. So what I'll do is I'll give you some highlights of the audit, and then I'll ask, how you want to run through it. So I'll just start by, just giving you some really high level, just some high level things. So the audit went well. So we had no findings or recommendations to address. The only adjusting entries were the ones performed by the auditors, and the auditors perform these entries every year. That is the lease accounting, depreciation, and pension accounting. So other than the regular audit entries, there were no other adjusting entries. I reviewed the draft line by line, and I only have a couple of additional confirmations needed from the auditor just to make sure we're both on the same page and we agree with the numbers. Those are pages 24 and 25, which we will look at. So the year ended with a net loss of $686.74. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit, and you're probably wondering, oh, I thought we were going to end in the black, but these losses are only because of the non-cash items. So of that $40,000, $35,051.12 was the Rutland Creek Path loss, and $5,635.62 was for RRPC. Now, a negative 5635 does include interest and miscellaneous income. Without those revenues, the net loss for RRPC would be roughly $12,850, which you'll see reflected on the financial statements. So the non-cash items that I was referring to does impact net income, but again, they're non-cash. One is the VEMRs, which you've heard me talk about numerous times. So that was a calculation, that was an expense of over $60,000 this year. So $60,297.
Is this the highest we've ever seen?
So yeah, it's gonna actually just give you the last few years. So this is definitely the highest we've ever seen. So 60,000 last year was 46,600. FY23 was roughly 31,000. FY22 was really low at $4,600. We've never seen a year like that. FY20 was 38,000 and FY21 was 29,000. So typically it's at least 30,000, but if you're looking at that number, we've doubled it this year. And there's no way to budget or predict what that number will be. So a couple other non-cash items is, of course, our depreciation of $6,286 and lease interest expense of $3,132. So again, as I mentioned before, so when comparing budget to actual, we did end in the black prior to the non-cash items. So looking at our RPC's total equity, it's roughly $483,000. If you reduce that number by the Rutland Creek Path funds of roughly $90,000, RPC's total equity is $392,000. Now, I'll just note that the RPC does have a policy to maintain 6 months worth of operating expenses as a fund balance. So just to give you an idea, 6 months of salaries is still more than, the current total equity or the total fund balance. So we still have room to add to that fund balance. But the organization's done a really good job over the years just building that number up.
What's the delta?
So it's 392,000. It's right. It's like where we are. So just salaries. Now, of course, that's not. You have way more of 6 months of cost, but I think 6 months of salaries is like almost 409,000 alone. But then you add in your insurances and all the fringe benefits and all those other rent, all those other things. We still have room to build that fund balance up.
So it could be as high as 7.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I could get a calculation and get that ready.
I'm just curious, but yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have room to grow. So let's see. So Devin has this is called the letter of governance. I think historically, I've referred to it as like a management letter, but I guess it is officially called a letter of governance. This is just a separate letter that is sent outside of, it's not part of the financial statements. But essentially this, are you on page 1? Yeah. Okay, so anyway, this letter is just talking about the auditor's responsibilities. And the one thing that I wanted to show you is if you just scroll down, it will talk about those adjusting entries that they had to do. See, scroll down a little bit. Oh, you're on page 1 of the audit. Okay. Go. I can pull that up in a minute. Anyway, the letter of governance, it just talks about the 3 journal entries that the auditor performed, the lease accounting, depreciation, and pension adjustment. So you're actually right in the audit itself. So if you want to go to page 1 where you were before, opinion. Okay, so right here in the second paragraph, that's what you always want to see, that first sentence. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. So that's a sentence that you want to see in your audit annually. And how do you want to go through the audit? Do you just want me to point out the highlights? Do you want us to go page by page? How do you want to go through the audit?
Well, we've done, financials financials every month, going through it, so it's not like
Yeah,
you're giving us something new.
exactly. No,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. And
Yeah.
I can just point out a couple pages, like how how it's set up really. Devin, if you go to pages 7, 8, and 9. So 7, 8, and 9 are your balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statement. So again, this is exactly what Larry's talking about. These are the numbers that you see every month. Now, if you're just the structure of the audit, so pages 10 through 23, these are called the notes of the audit, and the notes explain what all the numbers in the financial statements mean. So those are pretty much the notes. They all looked good to me. Again, I've had a couple like drafts going back and forth with the auditor. And so you're seeing a really clean version. And the only other, so on page, so if you want to skip to page 23, 24, Devin. So on page 24, that's where the schedules begin. So this is like supplementary information that are included in the audit. And on so if you look on page 24 and 25, the only thing else, these pages are related to the VEMR's DB, defined benefit plan. And I just want to make sure that the auditor and I are on the same page for that $749,000 number, and on the next page, the 749,000 and the 47,000. We're off by a little bit. Her number could be. We just have some back and forth. I'm just seeking additional clarity on that. So if there's anything that's going to be changed in this draft, it will only be on these 2 pages. So if you go to page 26, this is where you'll see budget to actual, and you'll see that the $12,850 net loss is the number that I was referring to previously. And then on page 27, now you've all heard me talk about the indirect rate. Yeah.
Sorry.
12,850. And if you go to the next page, page 27, you've all heard me talk about, we have to create an indirect rate annually, get it approved by retrans. This is one of so it's all based on actual audited indirect expenses. And there's a couple spreadsheets, but anyway, it takes a lot of this information to calculate. It'll be calculating our FY27 indirect rate. These additional schedules, if you go to page 29, it just kind of breaks out. So what happens is after we get the final audit, I go ahead and email it out to our grantors. V-Trans can, see, how much we're showing that we invoiced for, same as our EMPG grants, and same as our ACCD grant. And on the next page, we actually break out our ACCD grant into all of the tasks, and this matches the final reporting that I submit to the grantor at the end of the fiscal year. And then on page 31, it's a requirement of the Clean Water Service Provider grants that we have a separate schedule showing the activity of those grants, and that's what you'll see on Schedule 8. So, yeah, and then on the last page, that's where you would see any findings, if the organization had findings, which we don't. So you won't see that in that last letter right there. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to, answer them.
I don't have a question. I've got a comment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Another
Well, grass
10 in a
level,
row, 11 in a row,
10, 10, 10, I think.
10 in a row.
Yeah, I think so.
That's pretty impressive.
I think
if you ever
so.
do like an audit that's not clean, I'm leaving the country.
I know.
No, I don't wanna be near you.
I know. I'll be,
We're burning this place down. Yeah.
Okay, you said the only changes will be on schedule 1 and 2?
It will be, so is that, yes, exactly, schedules 1 and 2.
Okay.
So yeah, if you, make a motion for the full board, if you could make the motion with potential changes to those schedules. Whether there's gonna be changes or not, I'm not certain yet. But there could be, and I would have a clean copy, hopefully ready in the next couple days. I could get emailed out to the board with the packet.
Okay, is that what we need? A motion to move the audit forward with,
Recommendation of the full board.
even if there's some minor changes for, so motion to recommend moving the audit forward to approval by the full board or acceptance.
Is that a motion? No.
So
I
motion
have to ask
recommend to
you
the
guys
full
to make
Board
a
of
motion.
Commissioners accepting the FY25 financial audit report of the RRPC as presented with potential changes.
Too.
Your schedule's 1 and 2.
What he said.
So moved.
Thank you,
I'll
Larry.
second.
Thank you, Bob. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Excellent.
Well done. Thanks, MK, for presenting that. All right.
Just gonna,
Yeah, that
Next.
evaporating.
Right.
Next is exec director's report. Devin?
I actually don't have much, and that's partially because I just got back from a lovely vacation. So
Portugal?
Portugal was amazing. I so appreciate the staff. Everything went super well while I was gone, thanks to MK and everybody. We're getting our newest planner up, onboarded quickly into some new program areas. We have no new projects currently. Things are all just sort of moving at pace. So unless there are questions, I will prepare something more formal for the full board, but at this point, I'll really just be regurgitating kind of routine stuff that you might even see in the newsletter. The one thing I will mention is, it's November, so we're nearing the legislative session. I am going to be part of the VAPTA government relations team again this year. So my goal is to try to report on emerging legislation earlier and actually bring it to you all on this committee to see if there's anything that we want to comment on or bring before the full board for official commentary. So try to keep more plugged in. The other directors, as part of BAPTA, are going to be proposing some changes to Title 24 that really are contradictions or technical corrections of Act 181. So those are some bigger pieces that I want to have you all aware of that we're sort of working towards. But session is really hard to predict, so I want to sort of keep you all in the loop if that's something that you're interested in.
Um, I would say yes, I'd be interested.
Yeah, I think it's all things that are relevant to us in the region, obviously.
Mhm.
But I did meet with the newest DC commissioner today in Montpelier, and there's a lot of potential legislative fixes to infrastructure and ongoing initiatives, both environmental and development wise. So there could be a bevy of other legislative action this year relevant to our work. So I think that sounds like a good plan.
Your position in BAPTA, are you a registered lobbyist? You
No,
don't have to be.
no. Yeah, no, we are just acting as VAPTA. We do work with a lobbying consultant, um, who, doesn't, we fill out a lobbying report, but they don't lobby like you would traditionally think of a
Yeah.
lobbyist.
Okay.
So that's the Nick Krasen group in Montpelier. They have their VTSU is one of their clients as well. So yeah, that's who we rely on for most of the legislative information, at least. So we're not lobbyists ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have one for Bakuda, so.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. That's all I've got.
All right, sounds good. Next is also you on regional plan. Do you have something to
I do. Yeah.
report
So
on that?
the comment period for our draft regional plan through the LRRP pre-application process is closed. So it's public. Anyone can go online, and actually I can show you where you can access it because it's kind of unconventional if you're used to navigating any of the Act 250 websites. But if you go on to either the Land Use Review Board website, which if you just Google, you will find here, or the Act 250 database website, both you can find all of our information. So if we go to the Act 250 database website, this is where you would see all the projects normally, but now there's a new board tab. So if you select that board tab and then select the Rutland Regional Planning Commission, search it, you'll see our application number. And then here are all the entries from our pre-application. So I was really, really pleasantly surprised to see how many of our partners and towns responded to our request to submit commentary. So we've got Killington, we've got Proctor, Fairhaven, Shrewsbury, West Rutland, Pollitt, Castleton, Mendon, Pollitt, another Mendon. So I was very grateful to see a lot of our tier 1B communities did submit formal comments recommending that the LRRB keep our maps whole the way they are. Other agencies like ANR, DHCD, VEM, VTrans all submitted comments as well. From the biggest comment submitted so far is from VNRC. No surprise, right? They had a huge hand in drafting the legislation, and obviously their number one focus is environmental protection. So I am extremely concerned by the comments they have submitted on our map. They would like to see us hack our map apart and reduce are mere 2.5% of Act 181 Tier 1B, Tier 1A areas to less than half of that, which would be devastating to our region and also would set the precedence for the rest of the state that follows us in this process. You know, so what happens next? If you guys care to review these comments, they're online, they're open to the public. The next stage is the Land Use Review Board is actually meeting at our office as a open public meeting next Monday, the 17th, to deliberate on what formal feedback and recommendations they're going to give us from the pre-application process. And then that formal feedback and report from them is going to be due to us by that Friday, the 21st. However, everything they deliberate on and select has to be done in open public meetings. So that'll be done on Monday, the 17th. So Stephanie will be here. I'll be tuning in virtually because I'll be traveling back. You know, there's probably not much that we can say at the last minute to sort of change hearts and minds right now. But based on the feedback, based on the sort of rumblings I've heard from other RPC directors that have been in contact with state agency folks and LRB members, including the chair, they're taking real issue with our map and Chittenden County's map for some reason. And I think it's because if you think about it, Rutland County and Chittenden County are probably the only two counties in Vermont with actual substantial development, like Rutland City, and then our smaller communities. You know, Northwest region has St. Albans, but outside of that, they don't really have anything else. Addison County has Middlebury. Outside of that, not much else. So the biggest issues I'm seeing them call out are our village areas, which I kind of flagged for you all when you submitted your commentary. So we're really anxious to see that. And the other element that we received feedback on, we had a one-on-one meeting with the Public Service Department on our enhanced energy plan. So since Jeremy is no longer here, we wanted to get advanced feedback on that so we could have time to sort of address any of the issues. There are some issues with our maps, and they're looking for a little bit more analysis in the plan of our mapping for renewable energy generation sites, that sort of thing, and what our renewable energy potential is. So even though we've met our goals technically, so all this is to say two things. One, once we get the feedback, we're going to meet immediately and sort of digest it and figure out what we need to do. We want to bring that to you all, the ad hoc regional plan committee, which is the executive finance committee. The question to you all is, would you be willing to, or would you want to have a standalone meeting just to discuss those elements from the LRB? Or would you want us to try to bring it to you in early December? Because really we're going to get the feedback. We're going to have a day to talk about it. Then it's Thanksgiving week. And then following that, there'll be another week. And then our executive finance committee meeting in early December. So our original plan, you all remember, schedule was get this feedback, have 2 or 3 weeks to modify the map and our plan, and immediately go to warn our public hearing December 20th for January 20th. We have some flexibility in our schedule. We have about 2 months of flex built in. Right now, I can almost guarantee you we're going to need it. So we're going to need to at least take a month and a half and maybe warn our public hearing in mid-January for our first public hearing in February. So that would mean there would be some time. I bring this all up because, you know, we're kind of going to be in a bit of a pickle. If the LRB comes back and says, you need to change these maps or your plan will not pass, we don't really have an option. I inquired about an appeal process. There's no appealing the LRB. That is final. So in terms of us going back to the towns and being like, hey, we're modifying these maps. We can't possibly go to all 27 towns. Granted, not, Hubbard's not going to change. You don't have a growth area. But the towns, the dozen or so towns that do have growth areas, they'll be modified. But at this point, we don't have an option in how we modify things. We asked for very explicit feedback. This meets the statute or it doesn't, and you have to change this or you don't. So I think it's probably more important for us to communicate those changes to our communities at a broader scale than meeting communities one-on-one, and really work with you, the ad hoc committee, and then also the Board of Commissioners to do the sort of broad work of, okay, here are the changes, this is what we're proposing, this is what the LRB will accept. But, I'm open to suggestions if you guys have strong feelings that like we need to communicate this differently to our member towns, or if you're sort of feeling like I am, which is we're at the stage in the game where the feedback we get is the feedback we must live by, since there's no appeal process. And if we get our towns into a frenzy over it, that'd be great if they reach out to their legislators and there's some action that way. But ultimately, if there's no opportunity for them to sort of weigh in and change things beyond the LRB, then I don't want to create all these false hopes and expectations that they can further modify things to their liking. I think that was the opportunity was this summer when we made all those changes to get it the way they liked. And if the LRB decides to supersede their local wishes, then I don't see how we have any other choice at this point. And we knew this was an eventuality of this process in this like definitive 5-member judiciary board, but I'm going to have a hard time accepting some of the feedback if it comes back the way we fear it might. But I don't know what else to do. So my recommendation at this point would be work with you all on this committee, have a separate meeting, then bring it to the full board in December, and then warn for our first public hearing in February at our January meeting of the full Board of Commissioners. And that can even come from a formal vote, because that would be the 16th of January. So if we warned our first public hearing on the 19th or the 22nd, that would be after that full board meeting. Laura, do you have thoughts, feelings on this?
Yeah, it sounds like legislators need to know, but it also sounds like we should probably wait and see how,
Yep.
I mean, you have a much better feeling of how bad the changes might be, but I don't know, maybe, are they really hard for our towns to accept, or are they minor? You have a much better handle on that than I do.
Yeah, and I do think all the changes will be relative to the map. I don't think the plan itself is going to be changed much
Right.
at all. We
Doesn't
might
sound like.
want to make our own tweaks based on, because the plan speaks to the map. So if the map changes, we're going to sort of want that reflected in the plan. But as of right now, we'd love to sort of not monkey with the plan much. The feedback was very
Right.
good on the plan, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it is very much, and trust me, it's very much a wait and see. They could come back and be like, it's great, but just when I was up in DC today, one of their staffers made a comment to Charlie and I, who is the Chittenden County director, being like, and Catherine was right there next to us and was like, Catherine, your map is the model map. And he looks at us, he goes, you two, not so much. And I'm like, okay, tell us how you really feel. Great. So I can't think we can absolutely expect changes. To what extent, it's impossible to predict. So
Mhm.
So backing up, when the LURB comes back and makes recommendations, what's the definition? Is it like a suggestion or no? A recommendation is rigid, this is what you need to do, there's no flexibility anymore?
Right, so I asked the chair for that exactly. I said, it will help us, it will be no good to us if you give us sort of like broad statements or statements that are not mandates. So if you do provide us feedback, I want it in a you must do this bucket, a recommendation bucket, and maybe a wish list bucket. So the you must do bucket's the only thing that we must do. And in my discussions with the other directors today, they're like, frankly, the LURB should only be giving you this bucket of what you must do. All the recommendations or the wish list items, like that's not statute. They shouldn't be commenting on that. But
Mhm.
we're the first plan, so we don't know. But ultimately, I asked for that, and she did promise that because I do not want to guess what is or what is that, what is in, what is out on a
Right.
feeling. I want it to be super clear and
But-
not broad either. I want it to be like narrowly focused on specific elements.
So I think.
And the other-
back-
Mhm.
Laura, go.
Oh, I was just going to say the other thing that I think is really important if one region is doing maps that meet their expectations and then another region, ours, is not, then there's a difference of interpretation of the statute or the rules. I
Right.
would assume, because neither region is willy-nilly
No.
trying to go against the rules. So
Well, it's funny you.
it seems
it's
to
fu-
me they need to make that really clear.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, Laura, today, because Catherine, who is the director that is this model map, she said to me, she's like, Devin, I see no issue with your map. Our region, it's much more simple than yours. So it's easy for us to do. It's flat.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
largely agrarian. She's like, you have all these very like unique physical constraints. Your towns are much bigger and more historic. So, you know, she was like, I was compelled to almost even comment on your plan as another director. And that is something we discussed at our last VAPTA meeting is right now we're feeling as though all the people who have the wherewithal, first of all, and the time to comment on the plan have a very specific agenda, like VNRC, which is biodiversity protection at all costs and limiting growth to however they see growth manifested based on their interpretation of statute and smart growth. Whereas like the developers or Let's Build Homes or any of those other groups aren't even aware of the process, let alone having the capacity to weigh. So the balance of commenting on our plan, other than the comments that you all made and our towns made, I feel like it's really skewed to this sort of like very narrow interpretation. Again, Stephanie says this all the time, and I'll embody her here. We are squabbling over 2.5% of the land in the region. And of that squabble, we're really talking about 0.8%. You know, we're not changing the face of Vermont with 2.5% of the land. That means that 97.5% of Vermont is still going through Act 250 and or completely, you know, undeveloped. So I'm just struggling. I think this one is really far afield of what I thought the intent of the law was. So
Mhm.
You mentioned from day one that there was interpretations when you read it. It's like in court, you know,
Yes.
different people see different things. It's almost saying like maybe Chittenden and Rutland took more liberties than they should have with their map. And didn't stick to more of a too much flexibility. And it wasn't rigid enough. You didn't interpret the way the actual act says this is how you do a land use map.
but the act isn't that clear.
Well,
A
that's the
great
problem,
example
yes,
is
yeah.
VNRC has a problem with
Well,
some of
yeah.
the village areas we've mapped over their walkability. And that they're 0.7 miles away from the village center, 0.7 miles. The act says generally walkable. That is not shall be walkable. That is, to me, that is open to expansion depending on the modalities and the development patterns within that subset of the town. So like Pulteney, along East Main Street, when we park the bus, Laura, they think that's sprawl. That it's already developed. There's already sidewalks. How is that sprawl? So, yeah, I think we're just gonna sort of. The only interpretation that matters at this point is the 5 members of the Land Use Review Board. So.
Right.
So at the end of the day, when they come back and say you need to redo your map or make these adjustments, it's either or. You don't do it, you're not getting approval. It's
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
And that is the one benefit of this pre-application process is, going into it. So when we do submit after we adopt, if we did what they said, there should be no question. It should be absolutely right through the door.
They did send thank you letters acknowledging they got your comments.
Oh, good,
They sent that.
good, yeah.
Yeah.
We're not gonna listen to them, but
Consolation.
thanks for doing it.
Yeah.
So that's all I
So-
have.
All right,
for-
you had did you actually have a question on the table for what we wanted to do for schedule, or it sounds like you kind of figured it out?
I think I figured it
Right?
out, and I think
Okay.
the bottom line, Laura, I think is if we get substantial comments that we don't feel like we need, I think, well, if the comments are substantial enough to necessitate a special meeting, I'll reach out and see about calling that.
That sounds good.
Otherwise, I think we can wait until December and just go through normal business.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so that a little bit answers our November Board of Commissioner meeting agenda. So we already know that we're presenting the audit. You'll present everything, this discussion.
Yep.
To them.
And we
You'll give
will
us
have
a-
our regional committee meeting.
Oh, we will. Okay.
Yeah, there's a few Act 250 and Section 248 items to discuss.
Okay.
No community committee meeting. However, we've got a bunch of plans going through the adoption phase, so I have a feeling the next meeting in December or January might be multiple plans. So just be prepared to read.
Oh,
Okay. Is that it for November Board of Commissioners agenda?
Yep.
All right, moving on to FY26 strategic planning. Anything new on that scope?
Yeah. So Stephanie and I met. She started doing some work on this and started drafting a very rough outline of sort of what we might want to see out of the strategic plan and a schedule. And ultimately, her thought process, and I totally subscribe to it, is that let's start this whole process kicked off with the completion of the region and adoption of the regional plan as sort of the launch pad. So then hire a strategic planner and really perform this strategic planning, really probably more in FY27 than FY26, but spend these next several months sort of refining the scope and building out the outline that sort of she created. So I figured I would bring you that outline and we could start to really fill it in more, and I can give you updates in January. So I think for right now, it's more of I think we have a plan formulated and a schedule, and pushing it off a little bit, I think will be a benefit. Right now, we've really gone in and looked at the last strategic plan, and if you guys are really interested, I can share that. That's the one from 2012. It's been quite interesting to see like what we've done and what we haven't done and how things have changed. So I will send an email out with a copy of that so you can see it. But otherwise, I think unless you guys feel strongly otherwise, uh, adopting that schedule and that process makes the most sense.
This is all being done in-house, you know.
We are gonna hire
An outside source.
yeah,
Okay,
to do
Good
two
job.
things. One, facilitate the retreat and then to actually draft the strategy. Or the plan.
Sounds good. Any other questions on strategic planning? Moving on, we have planned to go into executive session. At this point
Yes.
in the agenda, Devin, can you read the statutory requirement for us to go into executive session, please?
Motion to move the Executive Finance Committee into executive session under one VSA section 313A1E to discuss pending or probable civil litigation or prosecution to which the public body is or may be a party, and where premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or a person involved at a substantial disadvantage. And I'd like that motion to include Mary Kay to enter into the executive session as well.
Okay, very good. Can I have that motion made by one of the
So
committee
moved.
members?
So
Thank you,
moved.
Larry. Is there a second?
Right.
Thank you, Drea. Gotcha. All in favor to go into executive session for the reason as described by the motion, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. All right, recording is being turned off.
Yep, 1 second here.